Look at a map of the United States and you'll see something strange. 50 stars, a clean outline of states stretching from Maine to California, Alaska tucked up north, Hawaii far out in the Pacific. But down in the Caribbean, there's another island, warm, densely populated, and covered in the same red, white, and blue, Puerto Rico. It uses the U.S. dollar. Its people carry U.S. passports. Federal law applies in every corner. From space, it looks as American as Florida. On paper, it should be the 51st state already. But here's the truth. It isn't. Not because it's too small, not because it's too far, but because Puerto Rico is trapped inside one of the most unusual political arrangements on Earth. A place that's part of the United States, yet never fully in it. This is the story of how an island that helped build America's power ended up living under its shadow, and why, more than a century later, Puerto Rico still sits on the map like an asterisk, a state that never was. From above, Puerto Rico grows like a paradise. Green mountains folding into rainforests, white beaches curling around turquoise bays, the fortress walls of San Juan watching centuries of empire drift by. But step closer and you'll realize it's a place of contradictions. The signs are in English and Spanish. The prices are in US dollars. The mail trucks read United States Postal Service. Puerto Ricans use Social Security, pay federal taxes on many goods, and serve in the U.S. military. Yet, when the mainland votes for its next president, 3.2 million American citizens here have no say. Their only delegate in Congress can speak but not vote. Their local laws can be overruled by Washington under the territorial clause of the Constitution. Puerto Rico lives by U.S. rules but outside U.S. equality. A democracy within a democracy that stops at the water's edge. 400 years before that, this same island was Spain's Caribbean stronghold, El Morro Fortress, guarded by the sea lanes to Mexico and South America. But by 1898, Spain's empire was collapsing. When the U.S. Maine exploded in Havana Harbor, war erupted, and within weeks, U.S. troops landed at Guanica. Spain surrendered before summer's end. In December, the Treaty of Paris handed Puerto Rico to the United States. There was no referendum, no Puerto Rican representative, no negotiation. The island was traded like territory on a board. Washington didn't plan to make it a state. It was a strategic base, a stopover between Florida and the Panama Canal, a projection point for naval power. Hawaii and Alaska were seen as future states. Puerto Rico was seen as an anchor. The flag changed overnight. The uncertainty never left. Maps like this tell more than history. They reveal how power reshapes the world in silence. And if you're into stories like this, where a single line on a map changes millions of lives, you're in the right place. This is Borderline History, and if you want to see where the next map takes us, consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps these stories reach more curious minds around the world. After the takeover, America had a problem it had never faced. Millions of new subjects who weren't white, English-speaking, or continental. Were they citizens or something else? The Supreme Court answered in the insular cases. Puerto Rico was an unincorporated territory. It belonged to the United States, but wasn't fully part of it. The court's language, calling Puerto Ricans alien races unfit for full constitutional rights, cemented a two-tier system that still exists. Then came the Jones-Shafrath Act of 1917. Puerto Ricans became U.S. citizens, just as America entered World War I. Citizenship came with the draft, not the vote. More than 20,000 served in that war. Thousands more would fight in every war after. They could die for the United States, but not elect its leaders. Since the 1960s, Puerto Rico has held 6 referendums to decide its fate: statehood, independence, or continued territorial status. Each one promised clarity. None delivered it. In 2012, a majority backed statehood, but the ballot was confusing, and many left it blank. In 2017, statehood won by 97% on just 23% turnout. In 2020, 52% voted yes, the narrowest of margins. But all of them were non-binding. Congress never acted. Even if every vote were unanimous, nothing would change unless Congress admitted Puerto Rico as a state. And for politicians, that's a risk. 2 new senators, 5 new House seats, a Spanish-speaking majority. Too unpredictable, too partisan. So every decade, the island votes, the mainland debates, and the map stays frozen. A century of motion without movement. Being part of America without being a state affects everything. Because Puerto Rico isn't fully integrated, it receives less federal funding for healthcare, infrastructure, and disaster relief. When Hurricane Maria hit in 2017, it ripped apart the island's grid, toppled homes, and killed thousands. Federal aid was slow, tangled in bureaucracy. For months, entire towns lived without power. Then there's the Jones Act of 1970, a maritime law forcing all goods shipped between U.S. ports to travel on U.S.-built, U.S.-crewed vessels. It inflates costs from everything from groceries to gasoline. Puerto Rico pays mainland prices on island wages. By 2015, years of economic strain left the island $70 billion in debt. Washington responded with the Promesa Act, placing Puerto Rico under an unelected financial oversight board with power over its budgets. Critics called it colonialism in a suit and tie. And yet, Puerto Rico refuses to disappear into paperwork. Walk through Old San Juan during Fiestas de San Sebastián. Drums echo through cobblestone streets. Dancers move in colors brighter than the Caribbean sky. Spanish and English weave through every sentence. Pride and frustration share the same heartbeat. Some say statehood would protect this identity. Others fear it would erase it. Independence advocates dream of a sovereign nation reborn. Most live in the middle, balancing both worlds, American by law, Puerto Rican by soul. For 125 years, Puerto Rico has been the United States mirror, reflecting its ideals and its contradictions. On every map, it's a small outline below Florida, often shaded gray or printed smaller than it should be. But in that space lies a question America has never answered. What does equality actually mean? Statehood, independence, free association. Each path has champions and fears, but the one thing Puerto Rico has never been allowed to choose is nothing happening at all. Maybe one day that will change. Until then, the island remains what it's always been, a territory forever waiting to be defined. If you've made it this far, you're the kind of viewer who looks past the map and asks why it looks that way. On Borderline History, that's what we do. Turn geography into story, and story into perspective. So if you want to keep exploring the borders that shaped our world, consider subscribing. It helps more than you think. Thanks for watching, and remember, every border hides a story. You just have to know where to look.